Today on Hearts of Heroes, a 3-alarm fire in a senior living facility leaves dozens of people trapped inside, and first responders have to move quickly to get them out.
It became very personal for a lot of us because there were people that we knew in that building.
Plus, a disastrous flood threatens to destroy an island community in Louisiana.
It was a wild scene. The whole neighborhood was flooded, and the water coming down the street looked like a river.
Terrifying situation. Thankfully, help was on the way.
A house fire is a nightmare scenario in most of our minds. Now imagine it happens at a senior living facility with more than 90 people inside, some of whom can't even get out on their own. Well, thankfully, in this situation, the staff put on their capes and became heroes, joining the first responders in getting everyone out safely. Upper Macungie Township is a small suburb of Allentown, Pennsylvania. With a population of around 20,000, it's small enough to have a neighborly feel, yet close enough to the city to offer modern amenities.
I feel it has a little something for everybody, whether you like the city living, country living, or if you're really into the hustle and bustle, it has lots to offer to a lot of people.
There's a real sense of community in this township, which also runs straight through the Heather Glen Senior Living Facility, especially since many of the people that live in Heather Glen are from Macungie Township.
I know a lot of our residents have roots in the Lehigh Valley and raised their families in it, so it's a wonderful place.
Many of the local first responders also have a very personal connection with the senior facility.
One of my firefighters, his mom's there. One of my neighbors that's a state police officer, his mom's there. One of my other firefighters here at the station, his grandmother's in there.
So when a fire broke out at Heather Glen, it was more than just a routine call.
And it became very personal for a lot of us because there were people that we knew in that building, and we wanted to make sure that everybody made it out.
Residential fires are one of the leading causes of property damage around the country. But being prepared for this kind of catastrophe can help to save both lives and personal belongings.
The staff had prepared for an emergency just like this, and that training would save people's lives in the early morning hours of September 22nd, 2019.
The day of the fire, the building was running smooth. It was operating normal. Residents, they were having activities.
After dinner, the residents went back to their rooms for the evening and were soon fast asleep, unaware of the danger that they were about to face.
To the rear of the location here, they have some townhomes, and a woman had woke up in the middle of the night, looked out her window, and seen a large amount of fire to the rear of the building here.
The neighbor called 911. Soon after, the alarm started blaring.
Staff immediately knew what to do, started taking action.
When first responders got the call, they knew they had their hands full.
In this situation here, we needed a lot of manpower because we had both a fire and we also had rescue operations, knowing that there were 80+ people in that facility, and a lot of them were non-ambulatory.
Firefighters Jake Gallick, Nick Bosga, and Jake Surface were some of the first to show up. They would not only have to put out the fire, but more importantly, they needed to get people out fast.
I was tasked with setting up a water supply for our tanker, and once I set up a water supply, I left the tanker and started throwing ladders.
Life is the most important thing, and we want to make sure that we do everything we can so that everybody comes out of this unscathed.
As firefighters began the evacuation of the building, Lieutenant Justin Kennybrew climbed to the roof to complete an essential safety task.
We come in and our first objective is to set up the ladders, check the roof out, make sure that we safely vent the fire so it doesn't spread throughout the building.
In many structural fires, firefighters will cut holes in the roof. This is called venting. It allows smoke to escape and also releases dangerous gases that can cause deadly explosions.
Once the roof was vented and the first floor was evacuated, the rescue team had a terrifying realization. There were still people trapped on that second floor, many of them still asleep. Coming up, firefighters have to rush into the burning fire.
These people were in wheelchairs. These people needed walkers to walk.
And later, a major flood threatens to wipe out a small island on the coast of southeastern Louisiana.
My biggest concern was that the water was going to come up over the levees again and flood the entire city.
But first, this safety tip.
Did you know that elder adults are 2 times as likely to be injured in a fire? So now is the time to consider their safety too.
If someone in your household is hard of hearing, install an alarm that uses a flashing light or vibration to alert. Keep emergency phone numbers and a phone nearby in case you or someone you love is trapped and needs help. And conduct regular fire drills to make sure everyone knows what to do in the event of a disaster.
These small safety steps can do wonders for ensuring a safer future. It's our duty to take care of one another, so make safety preparedness part of your routine today.
In the early morning of September 22nd, 2019, a 3-alarm fire broke out at the Heather Glen Senior Living Facility. Firefighters and first responders quickly began evacuating the first floor, but as the fire spread, they realized there were still a number of people trapped on the second floor.
We're coming out, and we hear there's victims trapped in the second floor, and then our team just got right at it, and we went right back to work.
Firefighters Nick Bosga and Jake Gallick rushed upstairs.
I'd say probably the biggest obstacle was locked doors. So every door needed to be forced before we made entry, which added time.
And then also we had to deal with a lot of people were disoriented because with the fire starting outside, it didn't trip the fire alarms right away. So 90% of the people were still asleep on the second floor.
It was a slow and dangerous process getting everyone out.
These people were in wheelchairs. These people needed walkers to walk. And you pretty much had to have 2 firefighters or 2 EMS to help each one of them out of the facility.
Meanwhile, Lieutenant Frank Kimball began ladder rescues. That required him to help one woman out the window who was too weak to climb out herself.
She was scared. You know, there was a lot of smoke in the room. She had a lot of water in the room. I said step to the side so I could jump in to help her get her feet out so my partner, Justin, could carry her down the ladder.
One by one, they meticulously helped each resident to safety. Miraculously, everyone survived.
It was a real sigh of relief. Now we can focus on assuring that the fire's out and making sure that we get people to proper facilities for the rest of their care.
All the residents were safe and accounted for, but once the fire was put out, the building was unlivable. Now they'd have to face that arduous process of rebuilding. Our sponsor, Belfour, were some of the first people on the scene.
I was here within 15 minutes and meeting with the emergency management directors, meeting with the facility directors.
First order of business, clear out debris from the heaps of damage.
They ended up flowing quite a bit of water into the building on the second floor, and then that just infiltrates down into the first floor, and that's why we're removing all the drywall and insulation.
The rebuild would take months, and even though residents were displaced from their homes, the tragedy, as it so often does, welded the community even closer together.
We kept it upbeat. Even though we didn't have our residents in our building and they were placed in other various care homes, we still went to see them.
And the first responders themselves became part of the Heather Glen family.
They really kept in touch and they care. It wasn't that they just forgot about us after the fire. They kept in touch and they really cared.
Lieutenant Frank Kimball had the chance to reunite with one of the people that he saved on her birthday.
Betty, it was her birthday, and we helped her see another birthday. And that's probably the best thing you can get out of this.
4 months after the fire, Heather Glen was up and running and celebrated its grand reopening.
On behalf of Mr. Coase, Mrs. Coase, and Heather Glen staff and residents, we'd like to welcome you to our new home. It's been a little over 4 months since we had our incident, and I can tell you right now, the building is better than ever.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, it's open!
The staff and residents now have a new home, and they'll never forget the selfless acts of the first responders that day.
You realize the police officers, the EMSs, the firefighters, that they're heroes. And then you have a new respect for them because they did something so heroic for us by saving our residents and those staff members that were in that fire. And that we'll be forever grateful for.
Coming up, a catastrophic flood almost washes away an entire community.
The thing is, you got a 9-foot tidal surge that came in.
Getting caught in a flood is terrifying, but now imagine you only have one way out, and that road gets washed away. Well, that's exactly what happened in the summer of 2019 in far southeastern Louisiana. There was, luckily, one more avenue for aid: the sky. The state of Louisiana has a rich and colorful history all its own, a profound tapestry of different languages, cultures, and experiences. Located in the swampy bayous of the Terrebonne Parish in southern Louisiana sits the small island of Isle de Jean Charles. Like the rest of the state, its legacy reaches far back in time.
My name is Albert Nakad. I'm the traditional chief of the tribe.
That tribe being the Biloxi Chitimacha Choctaw Indians. In the 1830s, the tribe moved to the island to escape the Indian Removal Act that had forced Native Americans off their traditional lands. Throughout the 19th and much of the 20th century, the population of Jean Charles remained relatively isolated. They sustained themselves through fishing, oyster harvesting, and subsistence farming. In fact, prior to the 1950s, the only way to get to and from Jean Charles was by boat.
School, by boat. We'd walk all the way to where the curve is at. We'd catch our little school boat and then we'd go to school.
But in 1953, a road was built connecting Jean Charles to the mainland. Almost 70 years later, in 2019, Hurricane Barry would hit the area, washing away that road and leaving people trapped in the rising water. Still, most folks on Jean Charles didn't feel like they were in any danger.
Barry was Saturday, a hurricane. So that's why people didn't leave. News was saying, a lot of rain, a lot of rain. So over here, we don't have to worry about the rain because we have the bayous that just drain out.
Louisiana often has impacts from major hurricanes like Katrina in 2005 and Harvey in 2017. So Barry might have seemed small by comparison.
When you live in a high-risk area like the Gulf Coast and are used to hurricanes, it's easy to be lulled into a false sense of security. But you always have to be aware of impending danger because a hurricane can also have collateral damage, which is what the people of Jean Charles experienced.
While the people of Jean Charles didn't believe that they were in any immediate peril, the Coast Guard was making plans to respond.
We see the storm coming and we have somewhat of an idea based on past events that have happened here as to what might occur. We use that and just stand by.
The week before Harry, New Orleans had a pretty bad flooding event where people were walking through knee to hip high water and the levees were really high. So that was my biggest concern, was that the water was gonna come up over the levees again and flood the entire city of New Orleans. Luckily, it didn't happen that way, and just kind of like the outerlying areas got hit the worst.
Before dawn on July 13th, Jean Charles would unfortunately become one of the hardest hit. The island was flooding, and the only road had washed out. People were now hopelessly trapped.
But the thing is, you got a 9-foot tidal surge that came in. It was supposed to be like 3 feet. 5 feet wouldn't have been bad either, but 9 feet.
911, what's your emergency?
A 911 call went out, and within minutes, a helicopter rescue team from the Coast Guard was mobilized.
We're trying to gather as much information as we can about what's going on. There's a lot more challenges at night when it comes to searching. Definitely is more risky in pretty much every case.
Now they would have to do a daring rescue in the middle of a tropical storm with no daylight to speak of. Coming up, rescuers witness Hurricane Barry's devastation firsthand.
The whole neighborhood was flooded and the water coming down the street looked like a river.
But first, this safety tip.
Being prepared can be the difference between relief and regret.
A Go Kit is exactly that. A kit with first aid, important documents, water, food, and protective clothing that's ready to go with you in case nature calls in a very bad way.
Trust the experts and be prepared. Mother Nature is on her schedule, not yours. And have a Go Kit ready so you don't wind up wishing you could have done more.
In July of 2019, Hurricane Barry hit Louisiana, and while the storm itself did minimal damage to most of the Gulf Coast, the flooding from the storm left the people that live on Isle de Jean Charles trapped in rising water. Luckily, the U.S. Coast Guard was on the way.
How many people are in the car?
The swiftwater rescue teams are often deployed for floods. They are specifically trained in the use of ropes, watercraft, and other special equipment to pull people to safety. And they most often arrive by boat or helicopter.
We got the call from our command and control that there was a neighborhood that had close to a dozen people whose homes were flooding and needed help.
My pilot called me and woke me up and said, hey, the other crew's out there right now. They're searching. They have about 12 to 15 people in a neighborhood.
So we kind of did what we're used to. We just started the aircraft up, got the information that we needed, and got going in that direction.
But when they got to the island, even they were shocked.
You expect a lot of rain, you expect a lot of flooding. What I didn't expect was to see cars underwater, to see water up to the roofs of some houses.
It was a wild scene. The whole neighborhood was flooded, and the water coming down the street looked like a river. It was moving pretty fast, and all the houses that weren't on stilts were pretty much engulfed in water.
The Coast Guard team knew that this was going to be a huge challenge. Not only was it dark, but the weather was still stormy.
We were experiencing very high winds, which made the hoisting a little bit challenging.
As the team began searching for the stranded victims, Hilton Chisan's home was almost submerged. He and his family scrambling onto a small metal boat.
We have a boat right here in the front.
Their house was not on stilts, so their house was completely flooded up to the roof line, and they had climbed into a little rowboat.
But when the rescue team flew over, they could not find Hilton and his family.
They were kind of like pulling their boat up underneath their overhang a little bit. So every time I would go to look, they would disappear.
Once they did hear us over the winds, at that point, a few minutes later, they came out and started waving, and we were able to deliver our rescue swimmer to the roof.
They deployed me down to the roof, and I helped them climb up onto the roof, which was, for the two elderly folks, that was a little bit of a challenge.
They got Hilton and his family to safety, but there were still others trapped. Edison Darter's house sits on 8-foot stilts, so his family and friends drove over to escape the rising water. But soon, his home was nothing but an island in a raging river.
My sister-in-law and then they came with the truck. We had about 8 foot of water. The water covered the whole top of his truck. Didn't see the top at all.
It's pretty devastating to see small SUVs covered by water and just the complete devastation of this one little neighborhood.
Owen was lowered down onto Edison's porch. His main job was to help people into the basket.
The scariest part about getting rescued by us is the basket ride. You're sitting down in it, but sometimes it can spin, sometimes it can sway back and forth a little bit. We talked to them on the ground and just said, you know, the basket ride will be over in 2 minutes and then you'll be in a helicopter.
These men and women's jobs are not only to come to the rescue, but to be a calming presence amongst all the chaos.
Once they got the family up into the helicopter, the team was able to airlift them to a safe area on the mainland. All told, the Coast Guard rescued 12 people that day. And those whose lives were saved have something to tell those heroes.
Thank you for saving my life.
Thank you, Coast Guard, for saving us.
But for the first responders, it's all in a day's work.
I remember when we landed and I was talking to my crew and I was like, do you guys think there's a better feeling than this? And they were like, well, the only better feeling is getting to do it again. So I think we all share that same sort of mindset in the Coast Guard.
It sounds like a cliche, but I've seen it dozens of times after every type of natural disaster. People, when they are terrorized by Mother Nature, end up coming together. It also gives us a greater appreciation for all of those heroes and first responders that show up when we need them most. I'm Ginger Zee. Thanks so much for watching.